Yeah.
Difficult. Well, we'll have to turn it off at the end. So.
Oh.
All right, good morning. Welcome to the Wednesday, October 18th meeting of the Howard Council on Aging. I'm Richard Waystack, and I'm joined by Carol Thayer, Ralph Smith, John Meadow, Justin White, and our director, Julie Wittes. I will start the meeting with entertaining a motion to approve the minutes of our September 20th meeting.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion, changes, alterations to the minutes? Did you all have a chance to read them? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Is there a vote no? I will take notes. We are being taped at the Howard Community Center and the Howard Channel. There's no one here from the public, so there's no public comment. Checking in with all of our board members, anything we need to discuss at a future meeting that you want agended. We have a couple things under new business today. Carol, anything?
No, I don't know.
Okay.
Nothing?
John? Justin?
The only thing is, I believe Leanne Smith's gonna reach out to you about getting something on our website, but I'm gonna go through the COA, so we can maybe get into some smoke detectors.
Would she like to come in, do you think?
Probably, I can ask her.
Why don't we agenda that,
Yeah.
to have her come in at our next meeting? Thank you, Justin,
Yeah, no
appreciate that. At this time comes the time every year that we reorganize the board. We look at officers of the board, chair, vice chair, clerk, and at this time I would open nominations for chair of the Howard Council on Aging.
I nominate Richard.
Is there a
I'll
second?
second that.
I will say, as I say every year, if I could have a good co-chair, and I'm going to be nominating Carol for vice chair, she would do so. She does a great job and her commitment. Any other nominations? Hearing none, close nominations. We have one nomination on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous vote. I will request a nomination for Carol Thayer as vice chair.
Second.
Is moved and seconded. Any discussion, Carol?
No.
Happy to have you. You know, I just want to say this, because I think everyone brings tremendous value to this organization. And Carol has served in this community for many, many years. Last year at town meeting, her husband was recognized into the Howard Hall of Fame. And frankly, there will be some point that right next to his picture will be her picture, because she has served in so many capacities for the town. And I rely on a lot of Carol's background for finance and charter, and we're going to be having a discussion about charter a little bit later in the meeting today. So I truly appreciate what you bring, institutional knowledge and history of this community, to the table, so we thank you. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, Carol?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Let's vote. I will open nominations for clerk. There are two people not here, by the way, who are subject to.
Looks like it's Angie again.
Is that a motion, sir?
That's a motion.
For Andrew Schlocker as clerk. It's been seconded. Any other discussion? If they're watching at home, sorry. It'll teach you never to miss a meeting.
Never miss a meeting, that'll teach you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Let me just write that down. Okay. They're great, thank you all. Julie, we'll turn things over to you.
Okay. I'm just taking notes because there's like.
Yeah, I've got them too, so, yeah.
So our current and anticipated operations. We wanted to announce to the public that we have just finished up planning for the holidays. I know it's not quite time yet in the outside world, but in our COA planning world, this is when we do all that good stuff. So we've got a lot of good holiday programming available again. We do a lot of distribution around the holidays of both food and gifts now for the past several years to folks in the community who need a little extra support. So we'll be doing all of that again. So that will come out in our newsletter in just another week or so. So everyone can look at that. It'll be on the front page, very, very easy to find. If anyone has any questions about what's available or would like to refer somebody to us, like for a gift program, we're very, open to that. It's easy to do that. Just call our office or send somebody an email, and we'll make sure that we take care of them.
Will you be sitting down with Howard's Channel to promote that?
Sure. Yeah.
I think it's great to get that message out. In dealing with one of the other committees in town, talking about assistance that's being given, one of the charges that have been given in that committee and this committee as well will be getting the word out to people, opportunities that are available for assistance in various ways, that we do need to be doing a better job of getting that message out. And it cannot just be the Howard's Channel. We've got to use other avenues. We've got to use social media. We've got to use press releases as necessary. So I think at some point we may want to shoot out a press release to local media so that we can do that, and if necessary, work with other committees in town to see that that word is being spread. And it's a great opportunity for anyone who's at a select board meeting to make it known in the public comment that's happening, because a lot of people do actually, frankly, watch those.
Yeah.
And we will assist if necessary, that when you're not available, those of us who may be at a meeting can step up and speak and announce it. Great, thank you.
We did get some very nice coverage from the Chronicle last year for our gift distribution program. They wrote a very good article, and it got us quite a bit of attention and a lot of donations. We had a very generous program last year.
And one of the, and I know I'm jumping down too deep, but while we're on that in the holiday program, you had mentioned at the men's breakfast that you need some assistance. And I know everyone here on this committee has been great in helping and delivering, but we need some additional assistance from volunteers to assist with that program.
We do. We use a lot of volunteers at the holidays. Last year we delivered somewhere between 50 and 60, we call them baskets, but they're not really, it's overflowed, it's not a basket anymore. We delivered to almost 60 families or individuals who needed food at Thanksgiving. And this is a lot of food. It's a big box of produce, a bag of groceries, and then the turkey. So we can only give a few to each person because they can only fit so much in their car, first of all, and we also don't want to overload them. This is a lot of work carrying it to the door. So we need a lot of volunteers for that. And then we delivered somewhere between a little over 150 gifts last year. And that obviously takes a lot of volunteers as well.
Right. Do you have dates that you need volunteers? Or
So our the Thanksgiving food delivery this year is going to be on Thursday, November 16th. Our gift delivery is not set in stone, but it always happens the week before Christmas. And right now we're looking at either that Tuesday or the Thursday. So that would be the 19th or the 21st.
Okay. And a quick question, because people who may be watching this meeting today, if someone wants to volunteer, they have to go through training to be able to deliver?
No training. We just have a quick conversation because you're not expected to go into anyone's house and have a conversation or anything like that. It really is just a quick drop off. A friendly chat at the door is great for a lot of people, but it's not an involved process. So we do need a COA check done before you can start. That happens really fast. It's one form that we fill out in the office, and then we get that back within a day. And then we just answer any questions you have. We make sure you understand where you're going. We give you a very clear route with the addresses mapped out in an order that makes sense for you to go, so you're not zipping all across town over and over again, and send you on your way.
So it's pretty simple, but you probably, with doing a COA, probably want folks to be reaching out to you by November 1st for that?
Yeah,
Thank you.
as early as possible, so that we are able to plan and know that we're gonna have enough volunteers. Because if it looks like we may be falling short, then we have to make some alternative arrangements, like, for example, with our staff, to be able to use some staff hours instead, and then, make the arrangements in the office to be able to do that.
And I know at least 2 or 3 members of this board have been called upon for overtime to help on that.
Yes.
So if you are watching and you've got some time in November and you can give, 2 to 4 hours in terms of delivering on that day, the 16th of November, we'd love to have you reach out to the staff here at the Council on Aging. We could use your assistance. Great
You have to be
opportunity.
able to say, ho, ho, ho.
That's right.
You do that very well.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'll train.
We'll just record you.
That's true, John. Great idea. And for those who have done it in the past, I have found it very rewarding. John, I know you've done a lot of those deliveries. Share your experience.
They're all different, but they're also, it's a lot of fun, and usually you brighten their day. It usually is just a handful of minutes at each house. I think the only issue is sometimes finding them. But once you become attuned at the ways of the driveways in Harwich, it's actually a lot of fun. And it's a mini wellness check and a fun delivery, and really just it'll open up your eyes to what you have in the neighborhood.
I found that when I've done it in the past, the joy that people have when they see you,
Oh, yes.
and they love to interact. And it doesn't have to be an hour, you can have 5 minutes just having an interaction.
They're really grateful, and in many cases, they're surprised, too.
Oh, yes.
Well, speaking of my friend, the Honorable retired judge from New York, I saw him actually delivering something the other day, or dropping off. It might have been a medical visit on Lower County Road, and the members of this board are very, very active in volunteering. And I know you've had a lot of response from people who you've helped out as you drive and you deliver.
Paying forward.
Well, and I think that's who we are as a community.
The last thing I'll add for volunteering is, so the delivery is probably one of the most important parts, because if we can't get the stuff to people, it obviously doesn't get done. But if carrying things is not something you're able to do, or if you don't have a car, you don't drive anymore, we do have some opportunities to do things in the office. So, for example, we try to have personally written cards that we give out with all the gifts, maybe not necessarily like using their name, but at least something that is handwritten with a nice message in it. And that's a lot of cards to write as well. So writing cards and adding some like decorative flourishes to the gifts is also something that someone could spend some time on. So like adding some ribbons and rather than it just being like the most simple wrapping. Those are just a couple things. We find other ways too.
That's a great opportunity. I know, believe it or not, there are folks who absolutely adore wrapping.
Yeah.
Love doing
Oh, I
it.
know.
God bless them. I'm glad they're out there. Nothing worse.
People were practically fighting over that job last year.
So if you are watching, there are a number of opportunities to work with our community and assist our community in both driving, delivering, but things as simple as writing a card and helping wrap some of the gifts. That would be wonderful, and we can always use some additional volunteers.
I'll volunteer just to wrap.
Yeah, you know what? That's great, thanks. I'm gonna
Yeah,
post.
I want to volunteer for the food distribution.
Yeah, okay.
I'm gonna post a looking for volunteers sign up sheet at our house.
Excellent.
See if we can get some
Great.
people for the 16th.
All right.
Thank
great.
you. That would be great.
See if we
Yeah.
can get a few guys and girls to come do that.
Much appreciated.
A little peer pressure might go around.
You were working on that these days.
Yeah.
Julie, what's next on the recognition event?
Yes. So just a quick update on that. The planning is and preparation for that is going very well. We're doing about half and half catering and Linda preparing food. She's preparing a few easy things in the kitchen because we wanted her to be able to be recognized as well, even though she's not a volunteer. She works hard every day of the year. So she's preparing some food, and then we've got some stuff being catered, and the Friends are covering that catering cost.
Great.
We've gotten a lot of RSVPs back. We usually have to chase a few down at the end, so we're planning to do that. And we're next week going to put together some symbol favors for the volunteers, and just make our last minute plans. Assigning who's going to decorate the tables that morning, who's going to be greeting volunteers, et cetera, et cetera.
Just like, if you have a sign-up sheet for volunteers for that, please let us know. This is in keeping with the policy that we had looked at of recognizing volunteers twice a year. We have our winter-spring luncheon that we do, and this is the second part of that. Because it's important. We ask for volunteers a lot, and we've got great volunteers, but it's important that they be recognized. So if you're able to be there, that would be great. We would love to have everyone in attendance if at all possible. If you haven't RSVP, please do so. And I think it's great to have us be there to thank the volunteers. And we try to recognize as many. And someone said at one of our brunches, actually it was a staff person, who had said, "You don't need to introduce us every meeting." And I said, "I beg to differ." I said, "It's not just introducing, it's recognizing the staff." And we had a huge turnout at the men's breakfast last week. And I think it's important that you and your staff and Linda in the kitchen be recognized for the work that's being done. And what happens is when people walk away from that, they walk away from the breakfast and say, "Boy, that was wonderful. We've got a great staff." They know all of you. They know your faces. They know your names. And it makes it easier if someone does need assistance in town to have that familiarity. So we will continue, despite staff's request, to keep recognizing the staff, and I think we need to continue doing that for our volunteers as well.
So the open meeting law training, I put it under my report, but it was really a reminder. I was going to call on Angie because she attended. So I didn't realize that she wasn't going to be here today. I unfortunately was not able to attend that training. I did review the materials that they sent out afterwards, so that I could have a refresher myself. And my takeaway from that is that we're doing pretty good. I didn't come away with any real advice for us because we're following everything that we should be following, which of course is how things should go. So if I still would like to hear what Angie's thoughts were. Maybe we'll table that and see if she has anything to say next month.
Did anyone have a chance to watch it? Okay, I did. I watched the entire thing.
Oh, okay.
And it was a great, and we're following the letter of the law when it comes to it, and how postings are important. It really is important that we do things as transparently as possible. And I'll get into, under some new business, some changes that are occurring in town when it comes to committees, commissions, and councils, what our role is and what we need to be doing. It's worth watching. We talked earlier today about conflicts, and those who may not know, I have a relative who works for the Council on Aging. And if something were to come up that was going to deal with that family member, as a chair, I could not call out Justin White, for instance. If something impacted him that was a potential conflict of interest, it is required of each person who is a member of a committee to self-identify and recuse. So if it was a situation where Julie was bringing something up relative to my relative in the Council on Aging, it's incumbent upon me to announce that I have a conflict of interest, to recuse myself from the chair, but also to remove myself from the meeting. And it will be turned over to the vice chair to run. And it goes across boundaries of all the committees, commissions, and councils in town to be able to do that. Because there are times that things may be a conflict, that may impact us. And people should know what their requirements are. There are also requirements as a chair, as a vice chair, of what we need to do for meetings. So it's a good watch, and it's a good reminder. We have to take our training, and we have to be sworn in appropriately, and all of us have been, which is great. But it's an hour and 20-minute program that's worth watching.
The biggest takeaway I got from reviewing the materials, and again, this isn't something that we, a directive that we have not been following, but just a clarification that I maybe didn't fully understand before, was that we should not be discussing business offline out of a meeting, and they really went into detail to describe, how important that is, and some examples of that. So even, just two members talking to each other about things related to the Council on Aging, if you're not careful, it could veer into board business, and so you have to kind of watch that line. And obviously, we all have relationships with each other, so, and people talk about work, so it's just something to be mindful of.
There's something called continuation of that, and I'll just use case in point. I reach out to Carol and an email relative to something, the policy here. And Carol says, well, that was important. I think I should send it to the rest of the council. That is a violation. If something comes out, anyone decides to say, okay, the staff send out an email to us that's about something we may want to discuss at a meeting, and someone responds, reply all, that could be a violation. But the thing that was surprising, and it was a great point, Julie, is Carol and I have a conversation. The next thing happens, Carol has a conversation with Ralph, and then Ralph has a conversation with John.
Yeah.
John has a conversation with Justin. We've just violated the open meeting law.
Yeah.
And you don't realize that because we're in a small community. We talk, we see each other, but if it goes to everybody, it is truly a violation and gets back to the transparency of the work that we're doing. Other thing that was very, very important that came out is know your role. What is our job? And we'll talk about that a little bit later. And we cannot bring up discussions about staff. That's Julie's job. She runs the operations of the Council on Aging. We're the Board of Directors of the Council on Aging. We deal with some policies. We're an advocacy organization and a group. We can't get into any specific discussions of staff unless Julie shares something with us, or we don't deliberate on that staff. That is her role. And it's come up of late in town where committees, commissions have a discussion about the staff who are their liaisons. And that reaches a number of factors, and it gets involved because we have many, many, many union positions in town, and that is not under the purview of what we do. So that was a couple of eye-openers there, actually. It was great.
But it should not be carried to ridiculous lengths. I mean, I can say more than hello to John, I see him in the morning.
Are you gonna go help next week, volunteer?
I can't
Sure.
talk about that.
Well, you can as long as you don't talk to the entire, well, we should change how we do that. That's a violation. Are you going next week? You helping out? Justin, thanks for reaching out to the association and your department. That's not. But when you get into, we should really talk about how we're gonna do that program next year. And then it goes to me and to Carol, to Ralph, and to John. That's a violation. John, am I gonna see you next week when you go in? It's a whole different ballgame.
Pardon? I didn't hear you say it.
All right, so for volunteer needs, we really discussed that already. I was mainly planning to talk about our holiday needs because we're pretty well covered everywhere else.
All right, thank you very much. It was a good report. Any other old business to come before us today? Under new business, we have a couple of things. The charter is being reviewed by a bylaw charter review committee in town right now. The select board are reaching out to every committee, commission, and council, talking about what their mission and their role are, and their responsibilities with each. We are established by the town charter. And the town charter is very limited in what it talks about. And I'll read it, section 8 of the charter, under, I forget which paragraph, but it's page 28 of 354 of the charter. It says, a council on aging of 9 members shall be appointed by the Board of Selectmen for 3-year overlapping terms. The director of the council of Aging shall be subject to the day-to-day supervision of the town administrator within the scope of the general policy and direction established by the Council on Aging. That last sentence, that last phrase, is the one that is having the most discussion right now. We do general policy, per se. We truly have no say in the day-to-day operation of the department. We've created policies on different things. We've talked about recognizing the volunteers. So we have a policy that states we want to recognize them twice a year. The director has embraced that and is celebrating our volunteers doing that. But if she wants to change the date of how it's being done, that is her job. We can have some input, but we don't dictate it. And what they're looking for, we also have, which, again, we have a mission statement of the work that we do. You know, it's the mission of the House Council on Aging is to support and advocate for older adults, their families, and their caregivers. So we went through a process to come up with that. So I've had our liaison from the select board ask me to sit down, which I'm happy to do, and I would love to have them attend a meeting to see the work that we do. I don't see much change in what the charter states as our direction, nor the mission of this organization. However, I'm one member of a board, and I want to see how you feel about this work that's going to be undertaken very, very shortly from the select board. You've been around for a while, you served charter review.
Yeah, I served on the charter review, and I found it to be a rather hopeless endeavor, actually. There were many recommendations that we as a committee made to the Board of Selectmen, recommendations that were subsequently fell on the floor, I guess. I mean, they never went anywhere. And the ones that did go somewhere beyond preliminary were refused. But, for instance, the one that comes to mind immediately is the $75,000 that was allocated by town meeting to support the Charter Review Committee in assessing our needs, you know, for independent counsel and so forth. That was completely abandoned by the Board of Selectmen. That never happened. So there were a lot of various things that it really felt as though we were, to me, I'd say this personally, I felt like we were pounding on, you know, the chair and not really getting anywhere. And I found it to be a frustrating waste of my time. But that having been said, there seems to be a move in town to have another independent charter commission, which with all the changes that have gone on in the past few
I'm going to interrupt briefly, only because I want to try to keep the subject to Council on Aging.
Oh, okay.
And how any changes, alterations, further definition of the charter and the mission applies to us.
We're good.
I think a lot of us have opinions on
Yeah.
the general scope,
The
but
general scope.
I want to
You're
try.
right, you're absolutely right. No, as far as the, our role, we have been very good in terms of, sticking to what our charge is and our mission statement. So I don't see any problems for us in that review. So, based on, my knowledge of what's gone on.
Those are the really only two areas that talk about the charge. Because the select board look at each committee and say, what is your charge? What is your job? What do you do? And charter is our Bible of the community, our charter and bylaws. And those are the two really directing objectives for us, or objectives for us. And we haven't really moved from that. And I'll be anxious to hear your comments in a moment. Ralph, how are your thoughts? Are that, as I read from the charter and our mission, are you comfortable with that's the work we're doing?
Yeah, without change.
You don't think we need any change? John, how about you?
I'm good with it.
Justin? And from your perspective as director, how do you view it? And are things that you want to see, because we'll be talking with the liaison and you will as well.
I do think the mission statement as it is definitely encompasses what we do and what our mission actually is. It reflects our values. I don't see a need to change the mission. And then the town charter statement, I think it does accurately reflect the relationship that we have between the board and the director. And I don't see a need to alter that. So whether it means changing the relationship we have or changing the language to describe that.
I personally would have some pushback if they were changing the relationship that we have with the director. You know, we do general policy per se, but we truly don't touch the day-to-day operation. And I wouldn't want to see that change in any way.
If I might add,
Please, Carol.
You've done a great job in impressing on all of us frequently and consistently that our role is advisory. And I think that's a big point for all of us. I mean, you've done that consistently, and I think that's been a big help to us, truly.
And I don't want to lose the fact that in addition to advisory, it's advocacy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we are at a position now where we're fully staffed. It's been a while.
Mm-hmm.
And if you had the opportunity to be here, volunteer, be involved, what I see, this is outside perspective, not speaking with Julie at all, that the team is working very well together. They complement each other. And that right now there's a situation going on in town, in this building, for instance, and a couple of things have been said, is that we have put a lot of emphasis on our work with older adults, and there might be a lack of effort in other areas, I'll just put it that way. I'm never going to apologize for the advocacy that we do for older adults in the community. That's our mission. That's our charge. That's our job. And if it's not being done in another area of town, it should not be taken away from the work that we're doing here. And because we do advocate, we're active. We're active at select board meetings and other committee meetings in town, advocating for the work that's being done here. I don't think we should apologize for being active in the community. And if others have a problem with that, then they can look at other committees and commissions and councils and do their work there. So, anyone else have any comment on that?
I want to get on the board because you stood at the town meeting saying you need people. And I'm in a position where I go into some of these houses and see how some of these people live and we make a positive change. Like I said, 3 minutes conversation, the deliveries, all the activities is huge. These people just need to get out of the house and need somewhere to go and move around.
Right.
That's all they need, you know. So I think the work is important.
Justin, for people who don't know, you know, the fact that you are a member of public safety, captain of the fire department here in town, and we've had a great relationship with public safety. And you talked about Captain Smith, who's worked with us diligently over the years doing smoke detective programs, COs, that we do work very hard to meet the needs of our older adults. And I do appreciate you standing up and being able to sit on the board, because the more that we work collectively with other organizations, committees in town, the more services that we provide our older adults. So again, I don't think that we need to apologize for the work that we do. I think it's good work, and I think that those in the town appreciate it. Someone asked me recently, in one of the other hats that I wear, how many people do we serve? And between the Council on Aging and the Board of Assessors, the number is substantial. You know, when you look at the numbers of how many of our adults, older adults, take part, what's the ballpark number?
It's really hard to say, but we have about 2,000 people subscribing to our newsletter, or households, I should say, and obviously a lot of those are 2-person households. And the majority, I would say, have contact with us, whether it's a phone call or a home visit or they're coming in. A lot of people are just contacting us by phone, or we visit them. They're not necessarily in a position to come in. So those cases are harder to track. But we do manage in some way. So I would say at least 1,000 on a regular basis, and then there's like a periphery who it's, maybe just once a year they check in with us, something, a question they have.
And I think one of the other committees we work with that we do tax credits and assist those in need, that's pushing 500 people. Now, there may be some crossover, but that's a substantial number. And Justin, the amount of people that you and your department touch who are older adults is substantial.
We refer people constantly. I do it constantly. So some of those phone calls are probably because of me. But I'm like, you need help. You need somebody here to get you through the day. And do Giselle as well. We push a lot of people this way, and with great results. You find so.
I
It
will
works.
say
The
we
system
are,
works.
in terms of being able to track this, we are starting to prioritize our data collection to be able to track who we're reaching and how often we're reaching them. So in the next year, we'll have a much better sense of that. And we also have some ideas about how to outreach to the people that we're not currently being able to connect with for whatever reason, whether they don't know that we're there or they just don't know that that we have a service that might be able to help them.
It's having the data is very important. When we go through the budgeting process, Julie as director will put forth her budget, what the needs are. And over the last few years, we have stepped in as a council to assist in advocating the director needs that we have. The more data we have and the software programs that we have now that show and track the programs that people are dealing with and the volunteer hours that are put in, is very advantageous. Because black and white numbers mean a lot. And when you go into the finance committee, when you go into the select board to say, here are the numbers, here are the folks. Oh, by the way, here are the volunteer hours, which is a reminder to make sure you sign in before you leave today to say you've been here for an hour to an hour and a half on a council on aging meeting. But those volunteer hours would otherwise be staff in order to do the services that we're providing to our older adults. So, I will invite our liaison to a meeting if they would like to attend. They'll be able to watch this meeting today and see some of the feedback that we have as a council. Ralph?
That was my question. Who is our liaison?
I believe for the Council on Aging, it is Julie Kavanaugh.
Okay. And did I hear you say we're a 9-member board?
That is what the charter says.
Yeah. Are we actively looking for additional members?
We have 2 people we're talking to,
Okay.
and to see, and Linda Roderick, and here's the thing that's important. If you have someone you've spoken to in the past who's expressed an interest, and they have put in a citizens activity request by the town, somehow, I don't believe all those are kept on file. So in the case of our last member who was appointed, she had done an activity form a year or 2 ago, but it's sitting somewhere. So once I heard that, I went to the select board, I went to the interview committee and said, we have someone interested. And it was, okay, put in a new form. So we did. Linda was interviewed. She was approved, appointed by the select board to the committee. So if someone said, oh yeah, I put my request in a couple of years ago, we need newer ones.
Right.
And once we know it, we can utilize the system to get to the people in the interview committee, get an interview done, and get an appointment. I have one woman who's looking to help, who was a tremendous volunteer with the family pantry, and has got great connections, and is a great decision maker. And I think she'd be a great member, and we've been missing each other the last couple of weeks to sit down and have coffee and talk about it. She wants to talk with me first and then talk with Julie, and if she moves forward, I think she'd be a great addition to the council. Ralph?
Who was Linda?
Linda Roderick, our newest member.
I didn't realize we had one.
Yes.
I was gonna ask the same question.
I was approached by someone, actually, someone on the council said, I have a friend who expressed an interest. And then when I heard that, it was trying to research, well, Did she fill out the form? Yes, she did. Okay, where's the form? It's been sitting somewhere in a pile. And I think what happens with the interview committee from the select board is that they put out a call for volunteers, which they do often. They wait for new applications to come in. Sometimes they don't look back at the older ones. So that's why if you hear someone, have them float a new one, let us know. Again, we can advocate. We can put out a call to the interview committee and say, hey, we've got someone coming in to meet with you, which you give due consideration.
So we have one vacancy.
Correct,
Okay.
correct. So, all right, that's it for the end of my new business. Julie, do you have anything else?
No, I don't.
Justin, how about you? John? Ralph?
Nothing further, thank you.
Carol? Then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So,
It's been moved,
Second.
seconded by John. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed can clean up the table. Thank you.
Take the pencil and go home.
stay in.
Very good.
Oh, okay, thank
I'll
you.
send it over to you and you can, yep.
I heard him say hour and a half.
John?
So, oops.
Would you press the red button? Please. Nice and hard. Good.
Okay.
That shut it down? Try it again. Try the other button next to it.